Hello, Devlin here with you, and welcome to another edition of my pirate radio show. And I have to say, now that we're 5 episodes into the next 100, I'm starting to really groove on that new theme song. I actually liked it when I first picked it, but I was like, I don't know if it's going to be as catchy as the last one was, which was, of course, Inner Smile by Texas. But no, I'm really liking it. I actually, when it comes on, I actually get into a bit of a groove, which is what I did to the other one. So I think I picked a good one. It's actually a public domain song. I can't remember the name of it, but you can look under the YouTube and it'll say it's something disco, something twisted disco maybe. But it's, I think, done by a man named Kevin MacLeod, and the reason we changed it, you regulars probably know already, but I'll say it again for people who are just maybe listening to this episode, is that, quite frankly, I used to use copyrighted music, and although there were all songs that we checked, we were allowed to use as long as we weren't making money on it. One of the things is on YouTube, you couldn't watch it on your phone or your mobile devices, your tablets and iPads and stuff. So we decided that we were going to try to avoid copyrighted music at all costs and try to put it so you can actually now take us with you wherever you go, because that's a big part of it. And some people don't go to iTunes or Google Podcast or my blog page where you can actually get copies that you can download and put on your mobile devices. Some people just want to easily go to YouTube, put Devlin's Pirate Radio Show 105 and there's my smiling face on their phones. So now you can do that. And we're going to keep an eye on you do that. And if we do play copyrighted music, you'll be able to catch those versions on iTunes and Google Podcast and stuff like that. Anyhow, we hope you're having a good week, and I've got another good podcast lined up for you. I'm going to talk some interesting things, I hope. I'm going to start things off with a very weird subject that some of you will just think is really weird. Others will get giddy with excitement. And then I will go to our Armando Nostalgia segment where I talk about pop culture. And I am going to geek out a little bit on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, who are going to be hitting movie screens very soon. And depending when you're listening to this, may already be at theaters. And I'm going to talk about my love of that show and, looking forward to seeing the new movie. And then I'm going to talk my more serious section. I'm going to talk about reality shows and actual reality and stuff that I've noticed that we have learned from reality shows. And people, you should know ahead of time, it's not good things. But first I'm going to talk about that weird little topic, because I like to do a serious one also. And so I decided to talk about my love of puppets. Yeah, just puppets. When I grew up, I had lots of different toys as a kid, but I really enjoyed puppets a lot. I got, all different kinds of puppets. I got the cheapy puppets that were just like fabric and then a big plastic head. Then I had the more elaborate puppets that were maybe a little bit more expensive. And then I had a couple of marionettes, although I didn't find them as fun as the hand puppets, where, you put your hand up and you make the animations. Sometimes you make the mouth move. And I actually, some of you might be surprised to know that I actually had a ventriloquist dummy. And I was never good at ventriloquism. I did try, and I remember saving up all my money to get him. And and I will talk about him a little bit later. I don't have him anymore. I kind of wish I saved him, but I didn't. And it's really sad because, he was really cool. But anyhow, let's start with my love of puppets. I think the first introduction to puppets, like everybody, is Sesame Street. And I was a big fan of Sesame Street and eventually graduated into the Muppets, although I was a very naive kid and I didn't actually see them as puppets. I could see other TV shows like The Friendly Giant that had puppets, and for some reason I kind of knew they looked like puppets. Even Mr. Dress Up, I could always tell Casey and Finnegan were puppets, but because Muppets were Muppets, and because I could never figure out, well, how come their hands, some of them, they move like real humans and stuff. I was a very naive kid, so I absolutely, just fell for the world in general. Not to mention you see people like Big Bird walking around Sesame Street, and you're like, how the hell is that a puppet? But, it was still fascinating as a kid. Now, probably even earlier than that, it was when you used to make the puppets at school. And I remember the first ones I made, and I actually loved making them, is when you'd have that brown paper lunch bag and you used to draw the face on the thing. And if you remember, you could put your hand in and make the mouth work, and you could draw in like the tongue and stuff like that. And I think this was like the first puppets that I actually got to play with, because you'd make them and you'd, glue on, like wool for their hair and stuff. And then everybody in the class would have their own puppet. And I don't know, it's kind of fun. I really hope kids still make puppets like that in school. Because to me, it was one of my favorite crafts. It's like when you knew, oh, get your brown paper bag out. There's only a couple things you're going to make, and puppets was going to be one of them. And that was like all right by me. So anyhow, and then you graduate, and then my mother, started saying, well, he really likes puppets. And so, we'd go to like a Kresge's or Woolco and get these little cheap puppets. And, they'd just be like a fabric that you put your hand in. And if you're lucky, they'd sometimes maybe have, some nice design. Sometimes it was just the drawing of what they should be wearing. Like if you had a king, it would just be a drawing of a king body. And then have a large plastic head on it. A good example of these would probably be, but though they're a little bit better, is the puppets on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. They kind of had a full body. And then as long as I kept playing with them, my mother just kept buying better quality puppets. And as I said, I don't have a lot of puppets anymore. I got rid of a lot of them. And I don't know, because even when I go into a store now, I look and I just grab puppets and I have to make their mouths move. I have to see what they look like talking. And so my obsession with this, so my mother saw that, wow, he's liking the puppets, so we'll get better ones. So now I'd get fabric ones, but the fabric would be different for the hands and different for the thing. And instead of a drawing of what they are, you'd get like thing. And they get me all kinds. My favorite puppet around that era was a Joker puppet I had. It was this, like a jester. And not like the Joker, like Batman, but a jester, like with the hat, that would come in and entertain the kings and queens and stuff. Harrison Wheeler, if he's listening to this, would absolutely love it because he likes the jesters. And I remember you'd get all these weird puppets, and my mother would just find different ones. So you'd get like a king, you'd get a jester, you'd get a princess, you'd get an alligator, you'd get a bear. And then you'd find creative ways to make puppet shows and write stories. And I used to do that. Even when I was a kid, I'd do that. I think the best gift that I ever, well, not the best, because I was spoiled as a child. I admit that now. But I had, wonderful Star Wars toys and stuff. But one of my all-time favorite gifts was one year my mother found a puppet theater. And she bought it for me, and she often just said that it was probably one of the best toy investments, because apparently I played with it all the time. And even if I wasn't using it as a puppet theater, I'd use it like if we were playing, restaurant, or we'd be playing, house, or if we'd be playing, movie theater. Because it was like this wooden thing, and it looked like it had like the, the theater part of it. And it had these beautiful blue curtains that you could like close. So when the show wasn't ready, you could keep them closed. And then when the show was ready, you could part them. And I remember they had these ties around it. So you could actually like tie the bottoms of it. So it looked like a professional theater and stuff. And I don't remember doing a lot of, like, I remember doing a lot of puppet shows, but I don't remember being one of those kids that, you know, yeah, I actually sort of maybe did, but I don't recall them with puppets. But, whoever was in the house at the time would have to watch the puppet show. Or, I'd be like, oh, they're coming. The neighbors are coming. Maybe we can do a puppet show for them. And then me and my friends would write a quick story and, play music. I know we'd always, play 45s and stuff like that with them. And they'd be pretending to sing and stuff. I'm sure my parents were. Yeah, I want to say my parents were probably charmed by it, because now I see parents when kids do stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh, that's charming." But I get this strange feeling that because my family was old school, they were probably just more irritated. And as long as they had a drink in their hand, they're probably okay. But they're probably worried that, oh my God, what do the neighbors think right now? Because my parents were very much, well, my mom was very much like that, like, oh my God, are the parents cringing? Do they think he's got some kind of special handicap because he's into all these puppets? And as I said, I got into the Muppets a lot, and I got a series of Muppet puppets. And again, one of my favorite toys was I had this beautiful Miss Piggy puppet, and I absolutely adore Miss Piggy. When I was growing up, I thought Miss Piggy was just so incredible. I thought she was funny. I thought she was pretty. I thought she was just probably my very first diva. Yeah, even predating Olivia Newton-John. They probably were around the same time, but Olivia never, I call her my diva, but she never had like this diva attitude, but Miss Piggy certainly did. And when I see people like Beyonce or Nicki Minaj or Jennifer Lopez acting like a diva, I always think of Miss Piggy and how she made a career of it. And so I got these wonderful like Kermit, Fozzie Bear, and then my Miss Piggy doll, it was absolutely gorgeous. And I eventually got rid of it, or my parents sold it at a garage sale, but I really wish I didn't. They show up at Value Village so much, but because the hair was so well put together, the hair never aged well. So unless it was kept in its box, which you know me, toys don't stay in the boxes in this house too often. And basically, every time I've seen one that I was like all excited to buy, the hair is just so awful. I'm like, no, I'd rather have my memories. But one day, who knows? I may have one of those Miss Piggies back in the way. Marionettes, I had a few of them. I remember having a bird. I found them harder to move. I have respect when I see shows like Thunderbirds or even like a movie like Team America, because of the fact that I love marionettes, but I found them very hard to work with, and I always kind of like how they walk and stuff. I actually like watching a marionette show rather than putting on a marionette show, because I just find it my strings get tangled up. I get very frustrated when like the leg gets caught up in the string and you're trying to fix it without like blatantly just putting your hand in there and fixing it. And yeah, so they were just irritating to me, but I still have a lot of respect. I remember I picked up a DVD set of some early Howdy Doody shows, and I loved watching them because it was like live television. And I remember Mike came in, and he obviously knew who Howdy Doody was, but he'd never really seen the show in its perspective. And I remember he was so blown away by the fact that he was so small, because he always thought Howdy Doody had like a good size to him, but Howdy Doody was just this little guy. And like when they'd show far away shots, you just see this little puppet there. And Mike just had a hard time believing that this at one time was the biggest thing on television. It's this little wooden puppet that would be like, you know what? I'm actually doing marionette moves and forgetting that this is not on camera. This is like a podcast, but I'm got my hands moving like they have strings. That's how crazy I'm getting right now on my talk of puppets. So anyhow, so puppets, yeah, what can I say? The marionettes just didn't win me over, even though I watched Thunderbirds and I think, wow, the stuff they did with that, if you ever get a chance, a lot of people probably aren't into Thunderbirds quite as much, but because sometimes the shows can be a little slow moving, but I just love what they do with the marionettes on that show. Ventriloquist dummies always kind of creeped me out, but I fell in love with one. On King William, when I was a kid, right near Kresge's, there used to be a wonderful toy shop called Playtime. I absolutely loved going in there because it was literally before Toys R Us, or at least before we got a Toys R Us. And it just was stockpiled with toys, name brand to, independent toys, like wooden toys, stuff like that. And I remember falling in love with this doll, which shocks the hell out of me because, one, it was a ventriloquist doll, and they always kind of creep me out because I don't know if I've ever talked about my obsession with a movie called Magic, but it was about this ventriloquist doll who, told the guy who to kill and stuff. Anyhow, if you haven't heard it, I must have told the story, and if not, I'll definitely tell the story again in the future. But anyhow, I was creeped out by ventriloquist dolls, but I fell in love with this one. But it was a Frankenstein ventriloquist doll, and you could make its eyes move, its mouth move, you could play with its hands, and for a scaredy cat kid who was basically scared of everything, I was surprised that I actually wanted this Frankenstein doll, and a ventriloquist doll to boot, and I saved up my money, and I actually got it. Even I think my dad was so surprised that I wanted this Frankenstein, because they would show clips of the Universal black and white horror films, and I would literally be frightened by them. But apparently this doll I wanted sitting on my bed or sitting on my desk or whatever. I did try to do the ventriloquist stuff, but it was really hard, and I still like playing with him, but most of the time he just sat there and watched me. It did give me a lot of chances to scare people, which was nice. Maybe I enjoyed that too. I know a couple times I had friends sleeping over, and they basically, in the middle of the night, they'd go to the bathroom or something, and I'd hear them, and I'd go and put Frankie in the bed and put the covers over them, so when they opened it, there's Frankenstein looking at them. And I know a few friends that they asked me to put it in the closet because it was creepy. And here's me loving this guy. I kind of wish I kept him because he was just so phenomenal. And my ventriloquist days never happened, but I still love that I saved up my money to get this doll because I was so infatuated. He even had real tufts of hair and the bolts and everything. He was cool. When I go into puppet stores now, obviously I've never been to a puppet store, but sometimes Indigo chapters will have puppets, and I'm actually shocked at well, first of all, they look great. They look absolutely fantastic, but I am shocked at how expensive they are. And I'm surprised that anybody can afford them now, because they look so good, but you look at the price and they're like $40, $50. And even for even a small little squirrel one. But when I go into the chapters and I see that rack with the thing, I have to go over and look at all the different kinds, and I think one day I'm going to treat myself. But then I'm thinking, now these are way too expensive. I know they're well made and everything, and that's what you want with a puppet. You want one that's well made, but I just can't bring myself to pay that much money for a little bit of nostalgia. And it saddens me because I don't see a lot of kids play with puppets anymore. Not that I go around the schoolyards to see if anybody's playing with puppets, but I don't know, because in some ways sometimes imagination is kind of slowly disappearing. I think puppets are a great way to tell stories and write things, but now they have new ways to do that. They can create stories on computers and stuff. But I don't know, I still think the feel of a hand puppet and, looking at a hand puppet and being able to talk with the hand puppet back, there's something kind of magical about it. It's kind of like having an imaginary friend that actually takes on a life. But when I see the prices of these puppets, I'm not surprised that kids don't have puppets anymore, because who can afford this? To me, it's who's buying that? Maybe teachers and stuff, but are they really using puppets to teach things? I love when movies, like older movies, make, parodies and stuff. I think the Brady Bunch movie had RuPaul as a therapist, and they had a basket full of puppets, and it's like, okay, could you use the puppet to show how he touched you, or how your father hits you and stuff. And I don't know, I get a giggle from that, not because of the actual abuse side of it, but because of the fact that they're using puppets to, like, thing. I don't know, puppets just, there's something about puppets that still drive me crazy, and I still get excited when I see puppets. And when I see something like Avenue Q or something that has like puppets talking dirty and singing dirty, it's exciting, because I think I just love puppets in general. And so I just felt it's time to talk about puppets. All right, I'm going to still continue to geek out. We're coming up to my Mondo Nostalgia segment, and I'm going to look at the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They've got a new movie that's hitting theaters very soon. You're going to have to wait till next week. I think next week I'm doing the review for it. I think. But, yeah, we are going to talk about some of that when we come back. It's Morphin time! I'll never be able to do it as good as Jason, the Red Ranger from the first season, second season, or how many seasons he was in. He was my favorite Ranger, and I actually was a big fan of the Power Rangers. Now, if you do the math, and please don't, just trust me on this, I was actually a lot older when the Power Rangers came out, and I actually knew this isn't my demographic, but I still had fun watching the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when they first aired on TV. And although I'm more familiar with a lot of the earlier stuff, I am kind of been watching with Mike, and I'm now in Lost Galaxy, and we're going to go a little further because they are kind of entertaining to watch still. For those of you who do not know what the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it's a show that was, I think, debuted around the 90s, and it's a show that kind of takes Japanese footage, and we kind of added American stuff to it. So, whenever they jump into their suits to fight the galaxy as the Power Rangers, it's all footage. Well, a lot of it is footage that was used in a Japanese show of the same name. I'm probably butchering this history anyhow. Anyhow, I started watching immediately, and I had a cult following. My friends started getting into it. We realized it was cheesy immediately, but we knew it was for kids. But it was a lot of fun. Everything was larger than life. They'd jump into these Zords, which were gigantic robots, and then the characters were all colorful, kind of like H.R. Puffin stuff kind of thing, like big, weird creatures. What's not to love about this show? And it had a wonderful cast, and it's obviously changed up throughout the years as the actors got older and stuff. And every once in a while I stumble on people who are fans of the show too, and they have fond memories of it. I never got into shows like Transformers and stuff like this, so in many ways this was my Transformers. This was my big robots and stuff like that. I love the show. It's not really well-written stuff, but the original casts are very entertaining. And, I definitely had my crushes. Austin St. John, who plays Jason, was my all-time favorite. He was the Red Ranger, the original Red Ranger. And, yeah, and it's just an amazing cast. And the shows were fun and light and fluffy, and basically every episode they'd fight some gigantic creature because of their villain Rita Repulsa could turn any monster she sent on them from going to their size to these gigantic things. So that's when they had to jump into the big monster robots known as Zords. And of course they worked with Zordon was their commander or leader, and Alpha 5 was this little robot that kind of helped them through their troubles. And as I said, I'd like to say as it got older, they did try a little bit more stories, but it still stayed kid-friendly. So they didn't get into anything really big. And as I said, I was a big fan. I saw both Power Rangers movies. They did the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, and they did Power Rangers Turbo both came to the big screen. I think I remember going to both of the movies in theaters. I actually remember winning tickets for the first one, and we went to like 11 o'clock showing, which was basically all kids and their parents, and then me and my friend Dave. And we didn't care. We were just there to have fun, and it was cool. I also was challenged once after we finished up one of our big role playing games. Somebody said, "Do you think Power Rangers could be done seriously?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think it could." And so I actually worked on a role-playing game that my friends and I played for, a couple of years called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers 3000, I believe it was called. And it basically took on the future of the Power Rangers, and we did some really dark, dark stories with it. But it was a lot of fun, and we actually, got to watch the, show, and we used homages to the show and stuff, and we got rid of stuff that we didn't like. So you didn't see Bulk and Skull, because although I thought they were kind of funny maybe in the first couple seasons, the fact that they lasted for longer than the original Power Rangers drives me crazy. It's like, what are they, 30-year-old men now still causing trouble at Angel Grove High? Anyhow, when they announced that they were doing a brand new movie, I was a little weary of it because I had seen the other two movies, and I have to say that the original Power Rangers movies did not hold up very good, and we only went because it was kind of fun to see on the big screen. So when they announced this other one, we didn't really know what was happening. Now, prior to their announcement of this, somebody made a short film that is hard to find now, but hopefully it's out there, and it starred James Vanderbeek from Dawson's Creek, and it was actually like a gritty short to say if we did Power Rangers as a adult restricted drama. And it was an amazing short. I thought it was just absolutely well put together, and people actually were fooled by it and were hoping this was coming out. Saban, the people who have always owned the show, have always been very protective of the show because they make so many millions of dollars a year from it. If you think about it, there's actually a new Power Rangers on TV right now. I'm not up on my new Power Rangers, but they have been going all this time, and every couple of years they change it up a bit. They change the Zords, they change the costumes. So I was leery when they said they were going to do it, and then the first trailer dropped, and I thought, this actually looks pretty good. It looks like they're going to keep it to the youth market, but they're going to actually invest in like some special effects, and they're going to adult it up a bit. And then the trailers kept coming, and the trailers just got more and more impressive, and now we're almost got at the chance of seeing it. And I'm actually quite excited about the prospect of seeing the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And apparently they're even saying that it's one of those movies to stick around, because halfway through the credits there's a post-credit scene. So they're actually expecting this to do well, because they've got hints of what's going to happen for a sequel. And so they're hoping this is going to be something they could franchise, because the first two movies didn't really do well at the theaters, even though the shows themselves were being watched by millions of kids every day. They played 5 days a week, so I'm really excited about it. I think they cast some really exciting looking people. They're going back to the original, characters like Jason and Kimberly and Billy and Trini and Zach. And I'm excited that they're going back to this. And, Rita Repulsa is like, if you ever saw the show, she's this big, crazy Asian woman that was just incredible. But they've got Elizabeth Banks, and of course they've moderned her up a bit. She's kind of like sexy and scary, but I think they're even going to deal with some backstories. There's some rumors I've heard that I don't want to say because they could be really wrong. But if they turn out right, they could be intriguing to the thing. I consider Tommy a part of the official cast, even though he showed up later in like later in season 1 or season 2 or something, but I still consider him. He hasn't been mentioned in this, but I have a feeling he will be a big part of the sequels. Even though, as I said, the shows can't be taken all that seriously, the 5-part episode where the Green Ranger shows up with Tommy is probably one of my favorite sets of the Power Rangers shows. I thought their introduction to Tommy was really well done. Sadly, Tommy eventually became the creator's favorite, and I think Tommy had a lot to do with getting Jason out. So even though I really like Tommy, I've heard that it's, for a fan of Jason, he got put on the back burner when Tommy showed up, and I've heard that it's caused some troubles for them, as in you won't see them both at the same Comic-Con at the same time. I hear that there's a lot of outs with Tommy and stuff, but that doesn't change the fact that Tommy was still a great character. Speaking of Comic-Cons, when I went to my first Hamilton Comic-Con, I actually got to meet Billy, David Yost. And I always liked Billy. I thought he was kind of cute, and I really liked him. But what made Billy even more exciting to meet when I got to finally meet him is that the actor came out. And I remember reading stories about how he would actually be, not by the other cast members, but by people who worked on the set. He actually said it wasn't a positive experience on a lot of it because there were a couple bullies on the set. And again, it's not the cast, it's, behind the scenes. And he said, and sometimes it didn't make for a pleasurable experience. And it kind of saddens me that he had to go through all that. But I was so proud of him when he came out. And here's, this guy who's on a kid's show who, basically came out of the closet, said, I'm gay, I want to be the person I am, and you still see how loved he is. And I remember, telling him how much I loved his character and got a big hug from him. And I loved it. I have an autographed picture in my studio, and I loved meeting him. And then the second year for Comic-Con, they announced that because it was so successful to have a Power Ranger there, they were going to work on getting some more there. And they had a couple. They had Zach and they had Rocky. And I always had written out that I wouldn't get a chance to ever see Jason because Jason kind of went on and moved on with his life. And then a couple months before the announcement started coming, Mike overheard something that said that they are going to get another Power Ranger, but it might be someone that you don't see too often. And that they were, and I got my hopes up thinking, I'm going to get to meet Austin St. John, who plays Jason. And when they finally announced it, apparently he, I'm going to get the story butchered, but he was in Afghanistan and in the military. And he was a paramedic in the military. And when he came home, he wasn't sure what he was going to do with his life. And then people said, do you know how much love the Power Rangers gets? And he literally was blinded. He did not know that, when he did the show, he was proud of doing it, the whole works. But he literally didn't know that the success of it was still a cult following, this huge cult following. And so they told him, you could go to these conventions and give it a try. And one of the first conventions he came to was he decided to go to smaller ones. And I'm so thankful he picked the Hamilton Comic-Con. I remember seeing him, when we got in and we ran up there, I think I was third in line. And he was a little bigger. He was heftier, but he was still... You could see that face was Jason, and you could see he was just this big teddy bear of a guy. And I remember going up to him and telling him how much I loved the show. And you could see that because he hadn't done many of these, that he was still kind of new to it, because he didn't really know how to react. But you could see he was also very pleased that something he'd done that he thought would just be forgotten and just okay. It was popular at the time, and then, they're going to have a new cast. But you could tell that he was overwhelmed by the fact that how many people were, standing up in this line and were, paying money to see him or get their picture taken with him or get a little autograph or something. And I think I eventually befriended him on Facebook, and you could tell that he did not take this lightly. He suddenly just couldn't believe that he had this fan following, and it was overwhelming to him because he literally did not know what he was going to do with his life when he got back to, civilian life. And I love it. I got a picture with him as well. I'll try to get both pictures for the YouTube for this. And I got to meet my favorite Power Rangers, and the thing I love about it, too, is how many Power Rangers fans there are out there. Again, that's the wonderful thing about Comic-Cons, because you meet other people that are big fans, and you can see by the lineups, what shows are really popular. And just to see, like, people of all ages, like even little kids wanting to see, like, the original lineup, to people my age or older. I remember even being in line hearing them talk about, and in that episode, remember, Tommy was transported to that planet, and I was like, I'm a fan, but I'm not even that big a super fan. But these people were talking about intricacies about the show. I always like when they ask those intricacies to the actors, because sometimes they know what's going on. Other times they're just like, hey, I don't even follow the show that much, but thanks for loving it so much. So I can't say I'm one of those Uber fans who can tell you what episode did Kimberly get kidnapped and turned into a. But the Power Rangers is amazing show. Mike and I still, as I say, watch it once a week. He gets a bunch of the DVDs for Christmas, and we get to relive it all. And now I'm even into episodes Lost Galaxy, which, aren't my favorite because I don't think the cast is as good as the original cast. Even the secondary cast that they had was kind of stronger. But it's still fun to see that, like, people still, I was just hanging out with my friends who have 2 kids, and every day they are obsessed with watching the Power Rangers. And I said, so, like, the new ones? He goes, no. They've gone back to the Jason and Kimberly ones. They know who all those people are. Now they're watching. They're up to the fire truck ones. And it makes me so excited to see that something like this is big. I don't know if the movie is going to be a big hit. I think it's going to surprise people and make a little bit of money. I'm really hoping that it's good. And as I said, I do my end of the month reviews, and I think that's going to be next week. So you will find out next week for sure if I loved the new Power Rangers or not. I will be honest. And and I love getting a chance to geek out like this, and I love knowing that other people have their favorite Power Rangers and, watched it as either a kid or watched it, maybe like even as I did. I wasn't a kid, but I still found it to be a good show to, kill a half hour every day after work. Anyhow, I'm looking forward to the movie. I really hope they did a good job with it. So far, everything is saying yes. The trailers have been good. The clips have been good. The posters, everything, they have been doing good. That kind of scares me a bit, because sometimes things can go egg-shaped from that way. But I'm going to be confident. I'll be seeing it in a day or two, so I will let you know next week when I do my list of March movies. March. We're in March. I got to remember that. It's been confusing with all this nice weather and the snow. We're in March. Anyhow, I'm going to take a short break, and when I come back, I'm going to look at reality television. I know it's changed over the years, but I've noticed that society has changed because of reality TV, and I'm going to talk a little bit in my seriouser segment, and that's coming up right after this. And we are back, and I'm here with my current edition of Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. Is it bad when you almost forget the name of the show you do? A little bit. Anyhow, we're back with my final segment. And this is one of my soapbox segments, so you've been warned. So if you prefer the lighter stuff where I talk about my family or my memories or the Mondo Nostalgia stuff, that's fine. But I'm going to get a little bit serious here. Well, as serious as I get on this show, and I'm going to talk a little bit about reality TV. Um, you may be a fan of it, you may absolutely hate it. I know people are kind of on the fence about it. A lot of people love it. You know, shows like The Bachelor, Survivors keep coming back, Amazing Race, Big Brother, all these shows keep coming back and back. Could be even a reality show like The Kardashians or, you know, one of the ones where they follow celebrities. Some people absolutely adore these. Some people love watching them because they're just so, I don't know, they're light and fluffy and you can watch them and stuff. But I have to admit, I watch reality shows. I'm not a big gorger, but I can say that I watched several of the early years of Survivor. I watched The Amazing Race for several years. I watched Big Brother. I still watch Big Brother sometimes. I love the Roloff family, Big People, Little World. I was there with the Osbournes. MasterChef, The Mole, which didn't stick around long, but I still is my favorite reality show to this day. And basically, I watch it. I admit it. And I remember when reality shows first started, and, you can go back to several places to say where it first started, but where the craze started a lot was when the Osbournes did their show. And then stuff like Survivor and American Idol, were kind of some of the earliest ones. I could be totally wrong. I think they actually predate even those two, but let's just go with that. I remember when they'd first come on, you'd think, holy mackerel, where do they find the characters like this? Like, where do they find people like this? Because I always felt that they casted these unusual characters. They'd have some normal ones, but there were some that you were just like, is this person for real? This is obviously why they got cast. And the thing that I want to talk about now is that now every character almost seems like they have to have that over-the-topness. But the thing that scares me the most is that I'm starting to see it cross over into the real world. So reality TV is slowly crossing into reality. When I first started seeing it, I remember seeing trailers for Big Brother Canada. And I have to say, I am a fan of Big Brother, but I cannot stand Big Brother Canada. And one of the reasons why is because, well, first of all, they have these people that are so over the top and look like they're fake because they look like they're trying to be controversial like, other reality shows. But it gets to the point now that I realize that these people aren't fake. These people have actually become raised on reality television, and these over-the-top characters that they give us are basically their way of saying, this is who I truly am. And that scares the hell out of me because these people are so over the top and phony. I wouldn't even trust, having a conversation with them, let alone, spending time in the Big Brother house. And I noticed that it's like, these don't seem like Canadians to me. And I'm the first to say Canadians, definitely aren't those polite people that we always hear about. I think some of us still are, and I still think I am, and I see a lot of it. Don't get me wrong, but I've been the judge of saying that that's a whole different world. We have a lot of unpoliteness now in Canada, so when I hear that. But when I see people acting like absolute ridiculous, like I'm a party animal, better watch your back, I'm the best, and stuff like that. So I started kind of concentrating on the world, and I noticed that a lot of people are starting to act like this. People are starting to become reality TV contestants. Think of Jersey Shore as maybe worst case scenario where they were always wanting to party and work out and have sex and do all that. And they never ever showed the sweet side if they had any of them. Maybe they didn't have any of them or maybe first of all, I do believe that in a lot of cases it is the editing in the show. Because a show like Big Brother, where you can watch stuff that happens off screen, you actually can see different stories building because of it. So I do think editing has a lot. But when you start seeing people in reality, and they're out there, they are out there. You're probably thinking right now, yes, I've seen them. And if you haven't, all you have to do is go to a mall or jump on a bus, and you are going to see these people. They walk around like they don't give a shit about anybody else's feelings. They walk around like, I'm a party girl, I got an attitude. You better not step up on me. And they're even talking like this now. So why I'm decided to talk about this is it scares me. Because there was a time you'd watch a reality show, and the reason you'd watch the reality show was these over-the-top characters, because you're like, I'd rather see them on a little screen than have to deal with them in reality. But as the decades have gone and reality shows have become more and more, I think reality TV has now sunk into reality. I work with some incredible young women and men, and, in the jobs I'm in now, the past jobs, but I'll be honest with you, sometimes you see them on their Facebook or hear them talking, like when they're going to go out somewhere and talk about how, they're getting their drink on and, they want to just get totally blasted and, Yeah, so it's a little unreal when you actually hear them talk like that. Especially when, they're like, you talk to them one-on-one and you actually get to see, their sweet sides and their, and I'm not saying people have to be perfect or anything. In no way. I'm always like a flirt. I'm always, was that a little too honest and stuff? But I don't know. I don't actually think it's honest when they're all like, oh, I'm getting my drink on. I'm going to look like a real slut and I'm going to, yeah. And I blame reality television because, I still watch some reality television. I will watch American Big Brother, unless I'm shallow. So unless there's not any good-looking guys on it, I won't. But even then, I'll watch good-looking guys even if they're total douchebags. Because they're people I'm not going to deal with regularly. And then I will watch MasterChef, which is a very different one, but even though that was innocent, even watching that, I've noticed the people on that are becoming very competitive, and they're picking people that might be able to cook, but some of them are like the attitudes on them. I think having a little ego is a good thing. I think it's very good. I think, being a little bit proud of yourself is something. But when I hear people and they're just like, like on MasterChef, you'll hear somebody, the first week of cooking, they'll win the round. And then you'll see the interview and they'll be like, they probably didn't think much of me, but now I'm a force to be reckoned with. It's your first cooking assignment. How do you know you're not going to fail all the others? And how do you know the other ones just had a bad day? I know it's good TV. People want to see that smack talk and stuff. But to be honest, wouldn't it be nice if it was a little bit more friendly? Like, well, I did really good and I'm so proud of myself, but I can't let that go to my head. Next week, I might fall apart. Look, I like a good reality show, but it worries me when I start seeing reality TV sinking into reality. And it's out there. You go, as I said, you go to malls, you hit buses, you hit things. Suddenly, people will go into these big cartoonish things. And you're almost thinking, is that real? Is that like a real thing? And then when you watch it, you realize that's not an act. That's how they really talk in that. And I think a lot of them come from watching reality TV series and realizing I need a big persona. I don't know who said it, but there's a wonderful quote that said, and I'm going to really butcher it sadly, but they said the sad thing is that all the real true-hearted genius people are shy and sometimes don't know how to speak their, speak what's on their mind. But sadly, a lot of the dumb or people who are just like not very nice are the ones who have all the confidence and stuff. Trust me, the quote is much better than this. I'm all about finding your voice. I was shy, and growing up, I found my voice. I started doing improv. I started doing shows. I started doing a podcast. I started being able to express myself. But there's a difference about finding your voice and choosing your platforms for where you're going to talk than to finding your voice and reminding people all the time how awesome you are, how sexy you are, how muscular you are. You know, I love that people I know go to the gym. But I have met so many people who go to the gym that you will know they go to the gym because they will tell you every chance they get. They constantly post pictures of how muscular they're getting. And you know what? I would be proud of it too. But you know what? There's more to life than that. You know, I wish these people worked on their personalities as much as they do their muscles. Because you know what? What a winning combination if you do both. There was a time when you used to watch a handful of movie critics. Now you go on YouTube, and there's movie critics everywhere. And I know there's some irony here because I critique movies too. But I always usually tell people to go and judge the movie for themselves. Now, people who have no business reviewing movies review movies. Even people who don't know anything about movies at all. And yes, you're allowed opinion. And everything is subjective, and that is great. But at the same day, it is so disturbing when you see a great movie and then you meet somebody who does not go to the movies regular, puts down this movie and tells all their friends. Do you know how heartbreaking it is to hear that? Because of the fact that it's like, now a lot of these people are going to believe this person. And they're going to think that's a shit movie. And then one day they're going to put it on Netflix and realize, wow, I wish I paid to see this because this was actually better than I thought. Because they didn't take the chance to see it for themselves. I get that all the time. I mention a TV show that I really like. They sometimes say, oh, I didn't like it that much. And then they give me reasons why I shouldn't believe them. Because of the fact that they tell me, well, I didn't like this either, and I don't watch this, and I don't even understand what was going on with this. And as their review goes on, it's like, you have just given me 3 reasons that I wouldn't listen to your thing. And I won't. Even when I listen to a critic that I like, I don't take their word for it. I go myself, and many times I've loved it. I blame a lot of this on reality TV and how we have now decided that we don't really need to come up with our own personality. We can just be an over-the-top stereotype. You know, I am so strong believer on human rights and everybody being equal. And I see, you know, I sometimes put down feminists the way they go through things, and I shouldn't because they have every right to do things as they want. But when I hear young women talking about how they want, equal rights and stuff like that, and then I hear them talk about basically degrading themselves. And I don't know, some people would tell me, well, it's okay if they want to look dressed slutty, that's their prerogative. And yes, it is. But when you're degrading yourself to like, I'm just going to be a drunken whore tonight, it's like, well, if that's your initiative and people start treating you like a drunken whore, maybe you should dress sexy and talk to yourself in a positive way. I hate to say it, but people have become so cartoonish in a lot of ways that I'm going to get in trouble for this, and I may have talked about this before. I have a lot of older friends that are single, and some of them are proud to be single. Some of them are really just don't care if they ever find anyone. This is their life. They love it. They'll have their pets. They'll have their friends. I have a lot of friends that are single and basically trying desperately to find that perfect someone. Sorry, I coughed and I caused kind of a nasal thing, and so if I sound a little weird, that's what's going on. I guess a professional would probably stop the recording and fix it up, but I just kind of worked my way through it. Anyhow, I forgot what I was at. Okay, so I know a lot of friends that are single that are desperately finding someone, and they constantly complain that they don't. I'll be honest with you, a lot of these people, I know why they're not single. They play their cards on their chest with social media and stuff like that. And just that the personas that they are, I'm not even saying the ones they're pretending to be, the ones they are, is so off-putting that I understand why I've got like friends that are boorish that can marry and have tons of friends, where I can have other people that are just absolutely like sweet, true to themselves, but don't have people. It's just the way you present yourself. And, it's off-putting, but, every case is different. So I'm not going to just sit there like, oh, everyone is like this. I remember telling a girl, she said, I wonder why I can't have a relationship. And I literally said to her, there's no room for anybody else in your relationship. Your ego is so big on yourself that you have no room to let anyone in to care for you, love you, because you're too busy loving yourself. And you have no time to love those people that way they want, is because of the fact that you want to be loved, but you don't want to love the same way that you want to be loved. And it was all complex. She heard it. She didn't believe it, but I don't know. I think she gave it some thought. But I still stand by it. And most of the people that I know that are single that want a relationship, I can usually tell why they are. I don't tell them why they are, because it's like, well, you're a great person. And in many cases, these people are great, but they have character issues that keep them from letting other people in, because they don't necessarily want to give as much as they want to get. If that makes sense. I think that either didn't make sense, or that was one of the deepest things I said on this episode. Anyhow, a lot of this all comes from reality TV. If we can't blame reality TV, then we have to blame the fact that we've told people that they can be themselves and we will love them any way they can. But again, as I always like to teach, be the best version of yourself. And that means that you do have to make some concessions. Yes, you can speak your voice, but you don't have to speak your voice on every topic. There's people that go on the internet that have to answer everything. They have to answer everything, even when they have no business answering those things. If you think you have a legit reason to say something, by all means, post something in the comments. But basically, that's where trolls and stuff come from, because they have to shit on everybody's parade, and even if they have no basis on it. Reality TV is sinking into our reality. We are all supposed to be. We don't have to work on personality traits anymore. Every quirk we have, we can play with. And I don't think that's such a thing. We just blow it out of proportion. I like to drink. Okay, that's a personality trait now. I'm going to be a wild, crazy guy. I like to smoke pot. That's going to be everywhere that I talk. Now, you're allowed to be proud of anything you want to be. But when it becomes everything you are, that's sad, because now you're a big cartoon stereotype that basically you might as well just be, it's the fine-tuning, the details in your life that make you a thing. But people don't know how to be that way. So instead, we look at reality television and say, wow, those people on Jersey Shore, they have a good time. They pump iron, they go out, shop, they go out, have sex, drink. Let's do that. And I don't even need a personality. I just need to be an over-the-top stereotype. So, I'm not saying give up your reality television. Just remember sometimes you don't have to be these people. To me, it's actually ruining reality television, because it was fun when a season you'd get a couple of people that would act like that. Now it seems every character has to have their niche. I'm the nerd. I'm the wild girl. I'm the smart person that wants to annihilate all these people because I'm better than them. Why can't we have little pieces of our own identity in there instead of relying on stuff like that? Now, I've given up a lot of reality shows. One of the shows, I used to like Survivor a lot. I watched the first couple seasons. And in the early days of Survivor, you would find your own niche, and you'd learn how to fish, or you'd learn how to hunt. and you'd basically learn how to like build shelter, and you would be kept to the end of the show because you're worth something. As the seasons went off, I gave up on Survivor because of the fact that they started kicking out people because of the fact like, oh, he knows how to fish, so he's going to win the million. And then what happens is they kick out all the useful people, and then we just get a bunch of people that don't do much, that just talk back and backstab and stuff. And to me, that's not fun TV. You know, people watch The Bachelor. I watched a couple seasons of The Bachelor, and I just, watched it because of all the, The Bachelorette or whatever. But it's just horrible that people think this is a really good way to find love. Yes, I think there are odds that you could fall in love in the case like this, but to do something every season? Horrible. I used to love The Amazing Race. It was one of my favorites because you were left to your own abilities. But I started giving it up when they started putting in rules that were backstabbing, as in you could like pick people to go back to a certain place. You could stop people for 20 minutes, and you could pick the people. Where before it was just your own devices, and you got to the places and stuff. Now it's like they're throwing that. But the one that killed me the most about The Amazing Race was when they added the family aspect. Because it was okay when adults were stabbing each other in the back, but when they were back talking about kids, or parents were yelling at their kids because they weren't doing something right, that wasn't entertaining to me anymore. Anyhow, I hope I haven't insulted too many, but most of the people I know don't have this big cartoonish thing. Personalities are so important, and I'm not saying you shouldn't work on your health. Hell, I should be out walking right now instead of podcasting. I should be out doing workouts. I should do something to make my body look better. But at the end of the day, you need to find a personality too, and not just steal a personality that you saw on TV and said, you know what, that would work great for me because I relate to that woman. I love that woman. We'd be friends if we were together. Or that guy is a total douchebag, but I like him. He speaks his mind. Be your own self. Find your own voice. And remember, pick your choices. Don't voice your opinion on everything. If you go through all the shows I've done, there are certain topics I won't talk about. Why? Because I don't know anything about them. If I feel, even sometimes I've talked about stuff, but I say right at the beginning, I don't know anything about them. So anyhow, always try to better yourself and not just try to steal somebody else's character. Reality television is the farthest from reality you'll see. But when you start seeing people acting like they do on reality TV, you're making reality TV more real than it ever has been. And reality TV should stay as fantasy as possible. The thing I love about Duck Dynasty is the fact that they admit that their shows are kind of fake and they come up with things because of the fact that it plays like a sitcom. It has beats like a sitcom. They have never said it was real. They have said right from the beginning, this is a show that's supposed to entertain. The fact that people see this as our real lives, that's too bad. They're loosely based on our own lives, but people don't go to Hawaii and just do stuff like that just on a whim. People think, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we sent the Duck Dynasty guys to Hawaii? Just something to think about. Anyhow, have yourself a great day. Maybe head out and enjoy the weather. And thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you all very soon.